to our podcast, Conversations with Two Golden Queens. I'm Phyllis Tucker Saunders, here with my co-host, Dottie J. Now, today's episode is Laughter is Good for the Soul, and we have a special guest, Pat Rocchi, who will help us explore the joy, healing, and power of laughter.
Hello.
Hi. Great
Hello,
to see
Pat.
you.
Hello, Dottie. All welcome.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here. Phyllis Tucker Saunders, you are now my favorite celebrity with 3 names. You have now replaced Tracy Ellis Ross and Jada Pinkett Smith as my favorite celebrity with 3 names. Yeah. And Dot, I'm sorry people can't see your lovely face because everybody knows that you were Mrs. New Jersey. Oh my goodness. You have a celebrity in your midst, Phyllis.
Absolutely.
Mrs. New Jersey there.
Dottie J is the girl.
Mrs. Senior New Jersey. I was at a parade and ran into the young New Jersey. And she came up to me. She came up to me and said, "I'm Miss New Jersey," because my sash had Miss. They didn't have senior on my sash.
Okay, she got you straight.
Well, you were able to rank on her.
That's right. I'm Miss Senior New Jersey.
That's right.
And Phyllis is also a pageant queen. Also,
that's what Phyllis called Conversations with Two Golden Queens. And they say that laughter is contagious, and there's a reason for that, because when we laugh, it's not just our minds that are affected, but our bodies too. And if you want to see somebody laugh and their bodies are all involved, you should hear my late sister Frances. She would be laughing so hard you couldn't even understand what she was saying. And we're all laughing hard, not because of what she's saying, but because of she's laughing so hard. So laughing releases endorphins, and that's the body's natural feel-good chemicals. And it reduces stress and it promotes relaxation. But laughter goes beyond just making us feel good in the moment. It can have profound effects on our overall well-being. For example, Proverbs 17:22 says, "A cheerful heart is a good medicine, but a downcast spirit dries up the bones." Dottie, what do you think?
As you know, I come from a long line of funny ladies. My mom is hilarious. She's almost 90 years old. She's hilarious. And you knew my grandma, Little Mother.
Little Mother.
My grandma was my mom on steroids. She was so funny. And thank God we always had laughter and joy in our household. Because as you know, I have a very challenging life being the mother of an autistic son. And without joy and laughter, I never would have made it through all the challenges that I've gone through. So laughter is truly good for the soul.
That's right. I have a client who is probably close to you in New Jersey. Her company is called Be Complete, and she's an overall wellness company. And she brings me on every once in a while, and I'll do a virtual show to one of her corporate clients for a half hour on Zoom. And I'll talk about the subjects that I talk about, getting older, having a family, dealing with the pandemic, but I'll also do some research on their company and make some jokes about their industry. So people really appreciate it. She believes it, my client, and you just reinforced it. Both of you ladies did.
Well, that's great. Now, let me ask you this. Do you find there's a difference in doing your act on Zoom as opposed to in person?
Yes. And it's a learned skill. And I'll tell you what happened. During the midst of the pandemic, I got a request through a website that I use to do, could you do a corporate show for about 15 minutes at an all hands meeting? And I said, and I almost wrote back and said, no, I wasn't going to do it. But about 15 years ago, I wrote a book that was all about dealing with change. It's called The 6 Ps of Change. And I said to my wife afterwards, I said, I should be ashamed of myself. I'm all about dealing with change, and I'm refusing to do something different. I should do. And so I went on and I did I talked to the owner of the company. He told me about some characters who would be attending the meeting, and I had jokes about them, and it went great. And he paid me a nice fee, and that we agreed to. And then he gave me a very generous tip. So I said, I think I'm on to something. Now, here's the thing. Here's the thing about doing it on Zoom. I always ask people to keep their microphones on if they can, and their cameras, because I can react to their faces and to the sound of their laughter. That helps.
Feedback.
Yes, exactly. I know when to stop telling the joke and when to start the new one. I had 2 instances where the platform that we used did not allow me to see them. And so what I had to do was tell the joke and make a face, and in my mind go 1, 2, 3, 4, count. And I said, okay, they should be done laughing. And then I do the next joke. And so that's where experience comes in. That's why I think you ladies should respect your grandmothers and your mothers, because there's a lot of wisdom there. And I've picked up that kind of wisdom over the years too.
Absolutely.
So that's the difference, not having the feedback. And even now I can have feedback with you because it's an interaction.
And Pat, we do have, like we were talking before we went on record, you and I have too much in common. I do a workshop called It's Time to Exhale, How to Deal with Change.
Yeah.
But Dottie, you want to tell us a little bit about Pat before we really get into the questions?
Yes. Pat Rocchi is a comedian who provides smart and razor-sharp observations on our modern times from the perspective of a man with a full life. He covers everything from getting older, raising kids, and life in the corporate world. He performs virtually and in person. His performances include corporate meetings, birthday parties, military and veterans groups, comedy clubs, weddings, and more. In 2023, the readers of Metro Philly newspaper named Pat best comedian in Philadelphia.
Yay,
his client says his superpower is how he customizes material to their unique needs.
Boy, that Pat Rocchi sounds like one heck of a comedian. He better be funny for a second of this podcast. He better be good.
So, Pat, let's get into the conversation. Can you just tell us a bit about how laughter is good for the soul?
Oh my goodness, it's so important. As I said, that one client recognizes it, and social workers and people schooled in medicine deal with it. They'll talk about the things that keep us healthy throughout our lives, and one of the things that they talk about is social connections. It's important to be connected in the world, and laughter helps create that. Now, there's certain psychological benefits. Certainly, there's the exchange of air when you're laughing. It helps to reduce stress. We all know that. It reduces anxiety. It improves the mood. It enhances our resilience and strengthens our social bonds. One of the things that we need laughter for is the world we're living in right now. I mean, if you want to get depressed, just turn on the news. I don't watch the news anymore because what parts of the country are at war and who doesn't like another group? People don't like each other. I'd rather just laugh. And so that's one of the things that I like about doing this, is that in a very troubled world, I get to go in front of a group of strangers and make them laugh. And that, as a comedian yourself, I think you can back me up on this. There's nothing like it, is there?
And I guess, Pat, you can kind of take them out of their reality for that short period of time, right?
Exactly. One thing that I'll have a client say to me beforehand, they'll talk about what I can do. Like, you can do R-rated humor, or we prefer you do PG rated humor, but many people will specify, and please don't do any politics. And I'll say, ma'am, no comedian worth his or her salt is doing politics today, because half of the audience is going to hate you.
Yeah.
You know.
So you'll do PG and just general comedy, clean comedy?
I can adjust it. I can, I can do R-rated comedy if necessary. I don't do too much X-rated, really foul stuff, but I'll talk about adult topics. I hope I can talk about some adult topics here, but I'll do it in a way I don't think will hurt your sensitivities.
Or offend anybody. Now, Pat, you mentioned the term exchange of air. I've never heard that before. I think I know what it means, but tell us what it means.
Well, I learned that also when I was singing. I used to sing in an a cappella chorus. I did that for about 15 years. And that exchange of air when you're either singing or laughing is so good for your health. If you've ever practiced yoga, you probably learn that exchange of air is good, the oxygen in there. There was a famous case, a medical case. There was a man who was the editor of a Saturday Review, and his name was Norman Cousins. And he was diagnosed with a disease many, many years ago, in which his muscle was detaching from his bone. And they said, well, we can't cure you. And he said, well, I don't want to die. I think I'll try to find a way to cure myself. So he did some research on the condition, and he found vitamin C could help, and the exchange of oxygen, heavy breathing. So he took vast amounts of vitamin C, but this was a time before VCRs. He got films of old TV shows like Candid Camera. And if you remember that, boy, we're dating ourselves if we mention that. You ladies are probably much too young for that. But
we didn't have
we know we're the same age, Pat.
Okay. And maybe some silent films. And he would laugh so hard. He ended up curing himself of the disease, and he spent the rest of his career addressing medical conventions on how he was able to cure himself.
Good for him. Not listening to the doctor and taking them at their word, because I preach that all the time. We're going to do a segment on that. Dottie and I are going to do a segment on that. But I'm glad I asked you to explain that exchange of air, because you're basically saying getting out the old air and getting the new air into your body, right?
That's right. That's right.
I thought you meant exchanging air with the people in the room. So I'm glad I explained that.
No. Well, if you're interested, Phyllis, you and I can arrange that privately, you and me. I mean, you're pretty cute, but I'll drive to your house.
Yeah, right.
I won't tell my wife.
And my husband, okay. But I'm glad I asked you to explain that, because I did have the wrong perception of that.
No, that was it. Out with the bad, in with the good.
Right. And
just as though you're performing artificial respiration.
So, Pat, how would you suggest to people how to incorporate more laughter in their daily lives?
Oh, we have so many opportunities now. Many times when I'm at home, I don't spend a lot of time watching television, but there are so many comedy specials and there are so many movies on. I can't tell you how often I go to my television and search just for comedy. And you can get stand-up special, you could get a story that's funny. I mean, you can some of my favorite people to watch, they never fail to make me laugh, are John Mulaney. There's a young woman named Taylor Tomlinson, and probably the person I like to model my act after the most is Chris Rock. I think Chris Rock is brilliant because he will start at this here, and all the jokes are connected. And by the time he gets to the end of his hour, he's gotten to this end point seamlessly, and it's almost as though he's written a one-act play. And I love the way he does that.
You had to mention the one comedian that I don't like, but go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. I think you should. I think you ought to revisit him.
No,
Um,
he drags on Black women all the time. So no, I'm not going to be.
oh, I understand that. I understand what you're, and he has been dinged for that a lot.
Yes,
I have heard that perception,
yes.
but his earlier specials, I would recommend maybe you'll appreciate him more if you see his two specials. His very first special that made him famous called "Bring the Pain,"
Uh-huh.
and then
Mhm.
his subsequent one called "Bigger and Blacker."
Okay.
And I just thought I just thought he was brilliant. And I thought his recent special in which he responded to the incident that happened with him and Will Smith at last year's Academy Awards was really well done. And
Okay.
in
Yeah.
that special, he showed great respect for his children's mother and his daughter and his own mother,
Mm-hmm.
and talked
Mhm.
about how his daughter is studying, is in college studying how to be a chef in Paris, and his own mother couldn't get medical care when she was a young woman because of segregation laws, and he tied it together beautifully. And he was still humorous at the same time. He still was able to find humor in it.
Okay.
So
Now,
I'd say I understand what you're saying.
right.
I think you're right. I think he has been tough on Black women, but I think he's trying to redeem himself, and maybe you would give him another
Give
chance.
him another chance. Now,
Yeah.
Dottie J, what questions do you have for Pat?
Okay. Well, I just want to
Yes.
say how Pat and I know each other because we graduated almost over 5 years ago from the Vince
Yeah.
Valentine Comedy Workshop held at Camden County College. And we were the oldest two in our class, but
Mhm.
we have done the most with our
That's
comedy
true.
career.
That's because we're smart.
Congratulations to the both of you.
Thank you.
That's right. So, well, Pat, I also wanted to let you, I know you're a member of Toastmasters. So,
Yes.
explain Toastmasters to our audience, and how has that helped to enhance your comedy career?
I'm really glad you mentioned that, Dot, because Toastmasters was, for anybody who has experience in it or anybody who wants to get speaking experience, it was integral to me.
Mm-hmm.
Toastmasters, for those who don't know, and if you want to find out more about Toastmasters, Google toastmasters.org. And
Mm-hmm.
it is an organization that teaches people how to speak. It gives them a
Mm-hmm.
practical experience, and you can go at your own pace. It's not a class that's a given number of sessions. You go as you can, and you learn how to evaluate other speakers, and there's practice in speaking for a prescribed length of time, and also speaking off the top of your head, improvised speaking. In Toastmasters world is called table topics. So stop and think about having that kind of experience could help me as a comedian. I knew how to get in front of a crowd. If somebody
Mm-hmm.
interrupted me, the equivalent of heckling, I knew how to respond. If something happened that I had to respond to, I can make up a joke very often on the spot, and I was comfortable with it. What I had to learn, Dottie, and what you and I learned in the class that we took together was how to be funny. My wife heard me after my first time performing, and she said it wasn't bad, but you didn't sound as much like a comedian as you did like a humorous speaker. So I said, I had to learn how to write a joke. And so you learn about the structure of a jokes, the setup, and then the punchline, and you give people what they don't expect at the end. And then once I learned that, it took off. That's when I started.
Was that also covered in this comedy school, or is that
Well,
just
that's what
something
I'm
you learned
saying.
afterwards?
No, in the class that I took with this teacher, anybody in Jersey who's in New Jersey right now, if you want to learn comedy, I recommend Vince Valentine.
And you don't have to
And
live in Jersey, right? You can come from Delaware or Philadelphia or wherever, right?
well, anybody who can make it to his classes, because he teaches in person.
Okay.
And anybody in the Philadelphia area, I recommend Act Two Playhouse in the little town of Ambler under the direction of Mr. Mike Donovan. Mike Donovan is very much younger than I am. He could be my son. And he started when he was a teenager. I think he started when he was like an embryo. I think he was an embryo. He came out on stage and telling jokes, and it was just silly. So
now, Pat, you mentioned heckled. Have you ever been heckled?
no, I don't know how I avoided it. I never got heckled.
Good.
What's
You're
that?
good.
Oh,
Because
thank you. I guess that's what it is. I hope that maybe I just have a nice class of audience. I'll tell you something, Dottie, I had one of the toughest experiences of my career thanks to you. I'm going to tell a story that you really put me in a bad position. We were doing a benefit for your church, and a bunch of people from our class, you said, everybody gets to perform for about 5 minutes. So a few comedians came up, and then you came up, and you didn't perform for 5 minutes. You performed for 13 minutes. And it was an African-American audience, and you were telling jokes that appealed to religious people in your parish. And you were telling jokes about that related to the African-American culture. And I'm listening to this, and I know I'm next, and I'm thinking, I'm a dead man. These people aren't going to listen to me. They don't want to hear me after they hear somebody who's so close to them. And so it was Vince Valentine, and he introduced me, and I got up on the microphone. People started walking out. They started going to the snack bar, to the restaurant. They did so, Dottie, and I had to grab their attention. I said, thanks, Dottie, for putting me on after you. Here she is appealing to her people in her culture and in her parish, and now here's the old white guy from Philadelphia. And they howled at that, and when my set was over and it went well, Vince shook my hand and he whispered under his breath, "Way to get them back."
Oh,
And
yeah, that was great, Pat. Oh my gosh.
You were there, Phyllis. Phyllis was there.
Okay.
Yeah, Phyllis.
Remember when you and Arnell came?
Yes.
You and Arnell came to Pennsauken at Homestead. Yeah.
Phyllis was probably one of the people who had to go to the ladies' room when I got up. This guy's
We're going back 5 years.
No, I'm probably just having a senior moment right now.
Yeah, but Dottie, that gets to a good question that's pertinent to you. The discussion is how do you entertain people? And one of the things you and I learned in a variety of places is that the world exists, their experience, and then there's your experience. And where they is where you find common ground and you find humor. So it doesn't matter what color you are or what religion you are. If you're a parent, if you lived through the pandemic, if you've had hard times in life, if you have family, if you have a relationship with another person, whether it's a marriage or a live-in relationship, you find that commonality, and that is the root of humor. And that is how you can entertain people. And we can, if more people were like you and me in this world, Dottie, we would transcend all the differences that people seem to find. It's amazing how people can work overtime to find the differences between us when actually we have so much in common.
So much in common.
That's right.
So, Dottie, do you think it's time for us to bring Pat on to show us his stuff?
Yes, indeed.
Okay.
I think so too. Come on, Pat, bring it.
One of the things that I get concerned about as soon as I get on stage is my age. Usually, the audience is expecting a hip young comic, and they get me, their dad's lab partner from high school. I mean, I stand on the stage just look at me. I mean, I look like a genetic mashup of Mitt Romney and Keith Richards. I have this decrepit body, but usually I put a suit over it to dress it up. I can tell people, this is your future. This is your future. Go and, work real hard for years, go on Social Security, and then, buy your groceries by making other people laugh at you, you know? And when I can't associate with the younger comics, when I'm backstage with them, they're on their cell phones, they're on their iPads. I'm on Medicare. And believe me, it would have been good if I had done comedy when I was younger. When I was younger, if I walked into a club, most of the women would say, "Ooh, I wonder if he's available." Now they look at me and say, "I wonder if he's even insurable." And I'm not. I'm not. Don't laugh at me. I'm not insurable. I'm in terrible shape. You get a younger guy.
You don't.
Oh, I bet I feel terrible. What's a good test? They say if you're in good shape when you're running, you should be able to talk while you run. Oh, when I run, I talk, but I say things like call 911 and where's the nearest hospital?
At least you can say that.
Yeah.
I mean, what am I for air?
Yeah. My life is so boring at this point that one of the big thrills recently was finding a new primary physician. And then the first thing she did when she met me was she prescribed an autopsy for me.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. She said, I objected to that. She said, "Oh, let's face it, we're all old, decaying structures." Well, thank you for that puff of positivity, doctor. Why don't you just do the injection, Dr. Kevorkian, right now? How did you two do during the pandemic? Were you stuck at home with people?
Stuck at home with them, which was fine.
Oh, that was good. Yeah, I mean, you weren't ready to kill each other, because I can tell you that my wife and I had a little bit too much togetherness during that time. Every time I turned around, it was like, "Oh, is it you again?" And one day she said she had it with me, and she said, and I said the same thing. I said, "I'm walking out," and she said, "You promised me till death do us part." And I said, "Well, I may exercise the death clause in that contract at the rate we're going." I'm going to tell you something. Now, you mentioned, Phyllis, that you're married, and I've been married for a long time. The pandemic, being home all the time, is a way to spice up your relationship. It was, find little games to play. I don't want, you're both nice Christian ladies. It's a good relationship is good. I mean, we play games like I'm the Domino's man and I show up with the pizza and she pretends she doesn't have any money to pay me. And I say to her, "Well, Mrs. Rocchi, this pizza won't pay for itself." And she go, "Oh, Mr. Domino's man, I am hot and saucy like your pizza." We were over the weekend. We were married for 45 years. 45 years.
Wow.
Yeah. Don't say, wow, it's not that great.
Yeah.
It's not that great, 45 years. I mean, it's like the vows I took where will you love, honor, and annoy this woman? She's always worried about, it's always like, she's always so worried about my health. One day she came into the room, she looked at me, she said, "Is that skin tag on your nose bothering you?" And I said, "Well, no, it's not." And she said, "Well, it's bothering me. Take care of it." So the stupid thing is I had to go to the doctor because something on my face was more bothering my wife. I went to the doctor. He said, "I have one of those." I said, "You have a skin tag on your nose?" He said, "No, I have a wife who nags me too." And she says things, you could appreciate this as church-going women. He says, "You should treat your body like a temple. I'd rather treat it like a Wawa. And keep it filled with hoagies and soft pretzels." So, let me say this. So after 45 years of marriage and being in my 70s, my love life with my wife can be described in movie franchises. Okay. When we first got married, I was a young man. It was the Fast and the Furious, we'd start the act. It was over a little bit too quickly. But then as I got a little bit older, a little bit more sure of myself, I was more like Iron Man, that movie franchise. Yeah, but now today at my age and after 45 years, it's Mission Impossible. So that's so that's me, folks. That's Pat Rocchi.
Yeah, Pat Rocchi.
Excuse me for a minute. My phone is going off.
Great job. Great job. That's wonderful. And Pat, thank you so much. We really appreciate you being with us today and sharing your talent. It's been a great conversation.
Thank you. I really recommend finding something like this late in life. If it's not comedy, it's something that you can share with other people to keep yourself engaged and out there with the world. You two Golden Queens, you've started this podcast. You're communicating with a lot of people, and you're doing the work of the good Lord by reaching out to people and showing them the positive side of life.
Excellent.
We talk about people being together and the differences that we find, but God willing, we will all get older. So we shouldn't discriminate against older people because we're all going to be older if the good Lord grants us enough years. And on the other hand, we should share the benefit of our years with everybody as you're doing. And I commend you both for what you're doing.
Well, with those words of wisdom, that's all the time we have for today. Thank you, Pat Rocchi, for joining us. And thank you to our listeners for tuning in. Thank you to my co-host, Dottie J. And remember, no matter what life throws at you, don't forget to laugh.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. Thank you.
So,
thanks, Pat.
Thank you, Pat. So until next time, keep laughing and stay joyful. I'm Phyllis Tucker Saunders of Conversations with Two Golden Queens. Remember, Dottie,
life is a journey.
Enjoy the ride. Signing off.